Bueno, buenas noches. Muchas gracias a todos y a todas por venir. Pasá, Santiago, no tengas miedo. Bueno, lo perdimos, me asustó Santiago. Bienvenidos a una nueva actividad del CEAC, Centro de Estudios de Arquitectura Contemporánea de la Universidad Torcuato Di Tella. Mi nombre es Agustín Rojas, soy el director de este espacio. Hoy estamos organizando una actividad con el programa en Arquitectura del Paisaje que dirige Ignacio Flerkin. Este programa de estudios cuenta con algunas actividades públicas como esta conferencia, que también le da inicio a las actividades del semestre, ¿no? Sí. Antes de empezar con el evento de hoy, me gustaría compartirles el calendario de actividades del resto del semestre. Tienen copias impresas en los accesos al taller. Todas las actividades expuestas aquí que organizamos desde el CEAC son abiertas, públicas y gratuitas, todas con inscripción previa. Siempre en la página web y en las redes sociales hay más información. La mayoría de estas actividades, una vez no pueden venir, quedan documentadas y grabadas y disponibles en el canal de YouTube de la escuela. Ya en estos últimos años vamos más de 70 actividades que realizamos, así que nada, los invito a que sigan a este espacio en sus medios digitales. No me voy a detener mucho en el programa de actividades hoy, porque creo que tenemos una audiencia distinta a los intereses del CEAC, quizás. Solo aprovecho para invitarlos a la conferencia de la oficina italiana Baucu la semana próxima. Van a venir dos de sus socios, Pier Paolo Tamburelli y Giacomo Suma. Baucu es una oficina que este año cumple 20 años. Es una práctica de las más relevantes de Italia, con una suerte de revival historicista bastante interesante, no solo desde la práctica, sino también desde la escritura. Hola. Bueno, y esta conferencia va a ser el jueves que viene a las 19 horas. Como siempre en la página de internet, tienen más información. Ahora, para así dar inicio a la actividad de hoy, me gustaría agradecer al Instituto Francés y a la Embajada de Francia en Argentina, quienes apoyan la venida de Mathieu a la Argentina. Es el tercer año que colaboramos con ellos en el CEAC. Estamos muy contentos del vínculo que estamos construyendo con ellos y bueno, la obra que está aquí de la ampliación del campus, que fue un concurso internacional del cual resultó vencedor el estudio Bruder, también es un poco resultado de estos vínculos institucionales, académicos que se fueron construyendo desde este lugar. Para presentarlo formalmente a Mathieu, me gustaría invitarlo a Hernán Aguilar, arquitecto y profesor del programa de arquitectura en paisaje. Así que Hernán, por favor.
Hola y bienvenidos. En principio, muchas gracias Javier por el equipo de CEAC y Ignacio Flerkin por la invitación. Aprovecho también para agradecer al Instituto Francés de Argentina y a la Embajada de Francia por la gestión de este evento. Y bueno, ya dándole el marco lingüístico a la conferencia, les voy a leer en inglés unos comentarios. Tonight, I have the pleasure of introducing Mathieu Lucas. We are happy to have you here in Buenos Aires at Di Tella University for this lecture. I will talk about Mathieu's work, how his vision integrates into the landscape agenda, and I will make a short mention of the Di Tella University landscape program. Mathieu Lucas is an architect and landscape designer based in Paris. Graduate of the École Nationale Supérieure d'Architecture de Versailles, he worked several years for Eurobasmet in Brussels and based in Paris, where he collaborated on major development projects and territorial studies in France and abroad. In 2018 and 2019, he was resident at Ishak Medici Académie de France in Rome. Here, he did research about interactions between the landscape of the Roman metropolis and the atmosphere. In 2019, he founded his own studio. He's currently developing a practice that combines landscape design with an exploration of living dynamics, natural cycles, and climatic processes. exploring new forms of cohabitation between humans, cities, and environment. He works in France and abroad, from garden to territory, collaborating with architects, philosophers, artists, and scientists. At the Landscape program, we are particularly interested in Matthew's work and his commitment to the territory, a territory that is anthropogenic, natural, technological, and constantly evolving. His approach is an example of how landscape design can go beyond aesthetics to become a critical tool in urban planning, architecture, and everyday life. The Landscape program's mission is to update the landscape agenda in the Rio de la Plata. The focus is on studying and designing soil layers, updating intervention methods and materials. The goal is to create landscape that maintains a unique connection with city and nature. We are responsible with soil management, botanic, and organic and inorganic cycles and masses. The landscape agenda centered on soil as a technological component provides us with challenges and opportunities to build narratives about the space we inhabit, incorporating a holistic and multifaceted approach to landscape design. Mathieu Lucas' studio makes critical reading of the present. I could be defined as a link between observation and revelation. His work is not simply about imposing a vision of preconceived ideas, but about discovering and enhancing the characteristics of a place, a reinterpretation of natural elements in interaction with culture in different landscapes. His goal in observation is to isolate the invisible components of the landscape, to manipulate them and transform them into graphic, projectual, and physical materials. The vision is not about aesthetic or composition. It's an integration of all elements, living and inert, reflecting the unique characteristics of place, considering both surface and subsurface dynamics. Mathieu incorporates a constant dialogue with scientists, civil and environmental engineers, ecologists, and local residents to understand climatic dynamics. The notion that each landscape project is a shared narrative highlights the importance of interdisciplinary collaboration in creating space. Mathieu's project has the ability to amplify the formal program into a new dynamic experience, new stories, and other horizons. Mathieu breaks down the formal and transforms it into a framework, a field of operation constantly moving. Thanks and welcome, Mathieu.
Do you hear me well? Is it working?
Yeah.
Do you hear me well? Well, good night, everybody. I'm really happy to be with you tonight. Thank you, Ditela, Javier, Ignacio, for the invitation. Thank you, Hernan, for this beautiful introduction. And thanks to the French Institute for the invitation as well. I'll wait. So, SML is a young practice created in 2019, 5 years ago. We are based in Paris. I started 5 years ago when I just came back from Rome, right before confinement, along in my kitchen. And now it's a team of five, 6 people. Before showing you some projects, I would like to share some images, some statements. When I graduated in 2012 from architecture, in 14 years, the way we understand the world has changed drastically. And it's not the same practice, it's not the same environment. We don't understand the world the same way. The first statement is an extract from the GIEC program, that it is going to be warm. Whatever we do, even if we implement large carbon policies globally, it is going to get warmer. What it means for us designers, landscape architects, we were used to know where to design. We were used to work in a stable environment with 4 seasons, where it was humid, dry, then cold, then warm. And now we enter an unstable world. So it means in our design, unpredictability is a new normality. It has a huge impact. You have felt it here with huge storm. It has an increase of extreme events. There is an increase of temperature. This morning I was reading an article saying that the Mediterranean Sea reached 30 degrees. So it sounds nice with the winter here, but it's actually quite scary. It has a huge, all the Mediterranean area is drying up crazy, super dry summer. It has a huge impact on cities. You can see the temperature of Rome, 46 degrees in July, Madrid, 46. And in Paris, it's the same, like it's getting warm, and it has a huge impact on our profession, the way we understand what we have to do, because the cities, they were always a promise of a better tomorrow. They were a promise of shared resources. They were a promise of quality of life. And now they concentrate on inequalities, and there is a huge work of social justice to do, because the more precarious people are the most affected by climate change. So now in Europe, everywhere, the conversation is all about how we make our cities still a hope for a better tomorrow. How we work on resiliency, how we work on climate, how we ensure that our public spaces are still a place you want to go to in every season for everybody. For us, it means that we have to address thermal perception. We have to address comfort. I know you are sensitive here about these issues, and maybe some of you are Florencia Colo students. This is a graph showing like how the body reacts. So in between 20 and 25 degrees, with a specific amount of humidity, your body doesn't have to react to its environment. You can extend this area of comfort, increasing the speed of the wind, increasing the humidity of creating shade. And it's a bit tricky because as landscape architects, we are used to work with soil, vegetation. We are used to manipulate static objects, visible objects, but we have to focus now on invisible parts of the invisible elements. How do you manipulate humidity? How do you manipulate speed of the wind? In architecture, in a built environment, it's easy. In a constant changing environment, outside, it's a bit more tricky. It's also complicated, or it's also tricky because climatology is a science. Then it's a young science, like starting 18th century. And there is this beautiful story by the philosopher Emanuele Coccia that they say that when they started to take the sky and put it into laboratories to classify the clouds, to understand the thermodynamics of the sky, to do weather forecasts, they robbed the sky from us, and they avoided it. Like we were not able to have an empirical way to addressing climate anymore. You know, this way that farmers or fishermen, they will look at the sky and say, oh, okay, it's red, so it's going to rain in 3 days. Oh, there is this typical cloud, so I have to go back to the harbor. Like, we lost an ability, because of science, to manipulate it in an empirical way. And also, like, when we work in our field, we don't have huge computers, we don't have data, we don't have the huge machinery we should need to address directly climate. So how do we do it in a sensitive way? How do we make science sensitive again? How we how do we do with our limited tools to be part of the solution? And so where do we start? To take all of this scientific knowledge, this climatology, and then turn it into design. So I was a few years working at Bas Metz, and I learned landscape with him. And he used this image. And for him, there is no landscape if you don't have a revelation, if you don't reveal something invisible from the site. And he used this image saying, with a quote of Oscar Wilde saying, before Turner, there were no Thames above the Thames. There were no fog above the Thames. What does it mean? It means like when Turner was able to catch the fog, then only it became part of the landscape of London. It becomes the strong image of the landscape of London. So it's only when you reveal something invisible that it becomes a landscape. So I had the pleasure to do 1 year residency program in Rome. And I had this mission or this project of trying to reveal the invisible part of the landscape. How do you represent to be able to manipulate it? Humidity, speed of the winds, the breezes, the evapotranspiration, the underground chemistry in the roots. So I was 1 year in Rome, and part of the research was dedicated to try to understand the historical manipulation of the climate, the connection in between, all of this empirical understanding of the environment. And the Mediterranean Sea, because the Mediterranean space, because of the extreme temperatures, we are looking really now at the space in a really precise way, trying to rediscover all the historical way to manipulate climate. In Athens, you would have these wind towers. It's an octagon with 8 sides, and on each side you have a representation of the wind which is coming. And every side, every wind has specific attributes according to its qualities. Either it brings fertilities or it's a bad wind. So they have a deep understanding of every wind, and this octagon represents precisely all the winds coming to the city. If we look at Vitruvius' work, he took the Roman grid and he was able to shift it to allow specific winds to get in the city, the white winds, the winds which were comfortable in the summer, and to block the black winds, the winter winds, which brings disease and illness. I had with me some amazing books like Garden and Climates by Sullivan, on design, weather and sensation, Silvia Benedetto, and with them I discovered that every Renaissance garden is a fantastic climatic machine. At the time, it was important for the powerful people to be in the garden around the villa all year long, because you had to be outside to be able to think about the way you drive the world. So the entire garden were designed to ensure climatic comfort all year long. And in every garden, for instance, you would find these 2 kinds of gardens. The bosco, which is a dense green oaks shaded areas where you can hunt, but it's also like a super dense part of the garden. And the pineta, which is this open landscape, the pinus trees, and you will see them in Rome on top of the hills. And those 2 are specifically located around the villa. The bosco is always on the north because it helps to protect the villa from the northern winds, cold winds. And the pineta is always facing the west to welcome the breeze from the sea. We will speak about it. And to create these 2 environments where you can enjoy the garden in every season. For instance, if you look at the Villa Borghese, you will see clearly like the north is this bosco and the south is this regular pineta. And around the villa, you would see these walls, you would see these more open spaces which were designed for winter comfort, where the walls were able to catch the heat and release it, so you could extend in mid-season the way you enjoy the gardens. There is a stunning example, maybe one of the most beautiful gardens in the world, Villa d'Este Tivoli, which plays with the geography, the hill. So it's like the villa is on top of the hill and the garden is just a flow of water, of fountains and grottos, and you have subterranean grottos in the hill. And all of this is playing with the wind coming up, going up the hill, getting refreshed by the fountains to be sure that the villa, the loggia on the top, stay cool most of the time. So it's the Renaissance garden was for me a key moment, because it's really an implication of landscape, geography, and architecture to be able to manipulate climate. And we have lost a bit this ability to design in an empirical way to manipulate these elements and to integrate, to display it into an integrated design. But in Rome, I also found this story that the man have managed to stop the wind. There is this legend, urban legend, saying that this building, the Corviale, so the 1 kilometer long building, have stopped the wind from the sea breeze. Every day in summer, when you don't have other extreme weather events, the land gets warmer, the sea stays cool, the air on the land goes up, and the fresh air from the sea reaches the city. And it's a fundamental wind in Rome. It's like the wind of the Dolce Vita. It's a wind like at 6 p.m. You feel it, so you go on the terrace, you put the napkin, you eat outside. It's why the Villa Medici has towers. It's why the Pope is in Castel Gandolfo on the hills, because they know it will be fresher and you will feel this wind constantly. And it's why really. So part of the Roman identity. And yeah, they even say that the architect killed himself while he realized that he stopped the wind. It's not, of course, this building is not responsible, but indeed the construction since the 50s have been so massive in between the Rome, the center is here, and the sea, that the wind keeps on coming, but the urban heat is so strong on top of the city that this wind cannot reach the center. It goes on top of the massive dome of heat. So having the gardens in mind, the Renaissance garden in mind, I try to explore all of these peripheries, all of this geography, trying to understand how could we maybe, following this fragile breeze, rethink the territory, rethink the geography, maybe even designing it as a vast garden where we could play with geography, architecture, landscape, just starting from this wind. So the geography of Rome is quite strong. It's a plain and it's surrounded on three sides by strong topography. You would have two ex-volcanoes on the east and west, and then mountain, north and south, and mountain on the west. If you go to Rome, like for those who know it, the grounds of Rome, it's made of basaltic stone and travertino. So those two stones, they are the volcanic, made from volcanic past activities. So I like this idea, like the ground, the materiality of the city express also its volcanic history, its geological history. And then you have this is a map of the hydrographic system and the vegetation. What's important is the Tevere, so this long river crossing Rome, and the large massive forest on the coast, and then following the water systems, some linear natural areas. So I went all around the peripheries in the weirdest place you can think of, like walking around where I was not supposed to go. And indeed, it's a mess. Like it's an urban sprawl without, without a clear organization, a mix of green spaces, new constructions. It's like a vast puzzle. You would find a bit like here, like a vast plain also where they build campus, where they build new operation from out of nowhere. So it creates this kind of mix in between full space and empty spaces. Some hills on the west and some residential developments with weird linear parks. Yeah, a mesh of different gradients of green spaces, natural, built, unbuilt infrastructure. And I also went to see the scientists because, yeah, is it true that the wind really stopped in Rome? And it matters because in Rome it's going to be the temperature of Tunis in 2035. So what do you know? What do you know? What do you see? What can we do? And they did confirm it. So I went to the meteorologist laboratory of Rome. They did confirm it, and that's the measure of the winds. So this, if you to read it, like you have the time, so it's 11 a.m. This is the wind direction, and the intensity is the arrow. At 11 a.m., the land starts to warm up, and the sea is still fresh, and there is no movement in between the land and the sea. And at 2:30, you see this movement started. It's just a thermodynamics movement where the fresh air is sucked in on the land. And the dark line you see is this global heat wall on top of the city. So the wind cannot go down and refresh the city. And then at 5, it managed to go on top, go down. And by night, the movement reverses because the land gets fresher more rapidly than the sea. But on its return way, the wind doesn't have enough power to refresh the city. And yeah, at 5 a.m., the movement is still reversed. Something to notice is that the winds always follow the waters. On top of a river, you always find a canal of winds. Like, always canalize the winds. So, and the Tevere is strong enough to make the sea breeze shift to follow its path. So I try to grab it, synthesize it, manipulate it. And that was one of the first documents. So you would have the sea here. That's the path of the wind during the day, the sea, the mountain on top. The altitudes are exaggerated. And it's a description of the interaction of the winds of different territories process. And because it's a regular thermodynamic, like it's an everyday sea breeze, you know exactly at what time it crosses which landscape. It will start by reaching a vast plain of the Tevere, which has agriculture, and it will meet the forest, the coastal forest, and it will face the topography and build hills. And then it will go up above the Rome Center is here. It will go up above the dome, the dome of heat on top of Rome, escape on the Tevere, and then go down and follow the hill. But it was not enough, or it was not, I was not able to grab it fully, and to try to follow it, to try to reveal it. The video came, and we had to do a video, we had to understand the speed of the wind, and I'll show you now, so I do like that, right? It's here. I got it. So I show you now a video that we took a drone. We tried to follow the wind, to reveal the path of the wind. We took a drone, and with the drone we were able to do the speed of the wind, and we crossed. We did the same path that the wind did on the different textures, on the different landscape we crossed. On that song. We have the sound. Yeah.
It's very low at the beginning, though, huh?
Is it good? No.
It was. Funcionar como la prueba.
No, this is a flex.
Nope. No. That's a plane.
I know.
No. That's construction.
It's like, you're teasing me. Wait, just one moment.
Cool. No, because I also worked with a music composer with an artist in residency 5 minutes ago.
I like the other soundtrack.
That's a nice addition. Okay. You're not sick? It's the presentation. I go back to full screen. Thank you. So once we have crossed the territory, like once we have understood the path of the wind, what was really helping for me, suddenly with the movements, with the dynamics, you start forgetting a bit about the visuals. You start forgetting about the lines, the properties. You only consider interactions. You only consider how a geography or type of landscape has an interaction with the wind. So maybe we could start to reshape a bit the territory following this wind during the day. We know that it will enter by the agricultural area. It will accelerate on the flat plains. So, of course, agriculture has to be maintained and preserved in the mouth of the Tevere. Like we know when the irrigation systems are on, the temperature 50 kilometers away are less than 1.5 degrees, 2 degrees. So we can start to imagine new connection between the city center and the agricultural land around. We know that the wind will follow the Tevere, so we start to reshape. And now in Rome, like the Tevere, because of floods, has these huge mineral banks, and it's really mineral. So how do we manipulate the entire river as a new water corridor, but an air corridor when you know it's going to be fresh everywhere? It will cross this forest, and forest has a huge impact on the wind. If they are too thick, the wind cannot reach them, like 200 meters, 300 meters in the forest, you don't feel the effects in the center. But on top of the canopy, the air is refreshed, and because it mixes vegetation and it gets fresher. So how do you maybe extend this forest to ensure that it has a capacity to make the wind fresher before it enters the city? On the west of the city, you have these hills which are built. How do you find maybe new alliances between the geography and the topography as the Villa d'Este, where it's a connection game in between the topography and the garden, the waterways? How do you rethink the way you inhabit the hills compared to how you inhabit the plains? In the center of Rome, you have the Via Appia Antica, which is this huge historical park, which enters directly into the urban fabric. How do you enhance its capacities to be a thermal refuge, like a large metropolitan park, as a main cool spot within the city? And then you have this plain, which is a mesh of urban, non-urban. How do you play with this game of puzzle? What do you keep empty so the wind could perforate the city fabric? What do you build? Could you build to canalize maybe the wind? All this thermodynamics could create some kind of hierarchy in this urban sprawl. And then some fresher areas because they're not built, but also because the wind can get them after. La Niene River, the winds follow this path of water, and some kind of agricultural land in the north, which could be maybe used in an even seasonal experience. How do you ensure that the cool part of the city could welcome new uses when it's too warm? And so suddenly following the wind, all of this territories, geography is connected by the GRA, which is the circular highways around Rome. So just following this tiny breeze, and it's something quite fragile, we could start to see Rome as 8 metropolitan gardens, where in every part of the city we could maybe rethink connection in between the topography, the geology, the landscape, and the architecture. So this was quite empirical. This was intuitions, and we were able to develop it much further for Annecy. Like that was a few years after. It was a big commission for the office. We worked with L'AUC, which is a big office in Paris for urbanists and architects, and we did a competition for prospective vision for Annecy in 2050. Annecy, it's located near the Alps. By chance, all the projects I will show you are located in this area. You could think, okay, the Alps are quite close, it's the mountains. In fact, the Alps are the most affected area in terms of increase of temperature. Like it's, of course, it's melting, but also there is, so all around the Alps, like you have these arcs of cities. This is Genève, Annecy, Grenoble, I will speak about it, Turin, Milan. All of these cities, because they are around the Alps, they face a huge lack of water, and it's getting really warm all around the Alps, because you have way less water going down, and it's one of the most changing regions in France. So Annecy is a city of 100,000 inhabitants by the lake. It's a beautiful city. I mean, beautiful for its historical center. It is really at the edge of the Alps. Like you see the lake made of an ex-glacier, and you really have the wall of the mountain starting, and you are in the valley all around it. It is. It has a really clear organization with a large plain which is densely built. And all around, you would face these hills and collines facing the lake. And Annecy will be, in fact, one of the warmest cities in France. It says that it will be the city with the most days of heat during the year, according to the latest projection. So 60 days, 11 nights every summer, where you reach like really warm temperature without the temperature going down. So in terms of geography, I was telling you, like it's really facing the Alps in between two systems, so the mountains and the valley and the hills on the other side. It creates this organization, like quite clear, with a large plain. It was the ex-glacier here. The plain, in the middle you would find a valley made of the river, and all around some coteaux, a bit like a theater facing the lake. It creates a specific geography, organize the landscape in a clear way, like in some kind of altitudes. In the valley, you would find more humid vegetation. Then you would have the plains with a massive, densely built plain, and then on every side, hills. This geography, it also implies two different wind systems, like all around the Alps. Same thing. It's always about thermodynamics. The wind, because of the difference of temperature between the high altitude and the low system of the valley, would create valley winds from Genève, which will go all the way down to Grenoble and Lyon. So you have the Alps, and the winds come all around every day. You also have a bit like in Rome with the sea breeze, you have lake breezes. So the lake is fresher, the land is warmer. So you have sea breeze coming from the lake toward the city. And same thing on the slope, like top of the hill is getting warmer, the valley is fresher. So when you have hills, strong hills, you have winds going down. But you have also like massive heat island because it's a dense city and you have a lot of mineral areas and massive heat islands in the center. So what do? The same exercise then revealing everywhere we go, every time we start to understand what's existing, and we just want to reinforce what's existing. So we look at the different characteristics of every geography of the city. So the first one is the hydrographic system. So in this act of revealing, we select what we want to see, and we create this map showing one geography at a time. So we took all the hydrographic system and we took all the vegetation along the hydrographic system. And we also noticed like every industrial areas historically are located along the water sides. In the center, you would find some alignments, like you would find in this plane, long alignments crossing the city. You would find existing parts, and you would find the porosity of the urban fabric because it's a city really made of 60s building, so it's modernist fabric, so you have a lot of empty spaces all around. And the medieval city, historical city, located at the mouth of the lake. And all around, what's the most relevant is this agricultural crown with forest on the edge of the plateau, and this fragile but still present system of edges of row of vegetation going along the parcel, agricultural parcel. So once we understand the three geographies of the city, the valley, the plain, and the agricultural hills, we try to reinforce what's existing to ensure a climatic structure, a new landscape structure for the city. For instance, on the lake, we will try to, we have already in every geography, we have this obsession of wind, humidity, and shades. So how do you combine this in every different part of the city? Along the lake, now you have a lot of cars, it's quite mineral. So what we have to do is to extend the maximum of vegetation right by the border to create this connection in between the wind coming from the lake and a much more shaded and vegetation and park environment. Then you want to work on the axis, so the breeze from the lake will enter the city. So this is, for instance, a section of the lakeside. You would see massive parkings right by the city, then large open spaces in the lake. How do you extend the park from here way further into the city? And it would create this renewed lakefront, which could be one of the major, like a revitalized major public spaces for the city, where you would find large amenities. You would give access to the water in much more different ways for many different publics. So, for instance, start the parking, and you would want it to extend the park, create a shaded environment by the water, and create new amenities directly on the lake. In the plains, thinking about what we thought was the most important, meaning this large axis, and this, you would see it on the porosity of the city fabric with all of these open spaces. We mapped along this axis every space we could manipulate. You want to take out the little green? Mm-hmm. So we took Google Map and we mapped every space, like every parking spot we could use, every space under a tower we could use, every public width along the roads, and it gives this map of possible space to transform this avenue, which are quite mineral. You would see on the width, like it's right there, and you have all these mineral fabrics, parkings, and so on, into a large garden structure. So you will see in sections for the parking, the mineral space, the 3 lanes with mineral spaces as well, use like space about close to the building. And we would try to have this obsession of the water, or do you ensure that the water gets into the ground everywhere, or do you transform the porosity of the grounds? And all of this simple gesture could turn into vast garden structures within the entire city. Then you have the hydrographic system, and in the middle of the city you have a large valley. Same thing, you could think, okay, it's a valley, there is water, it seems to have a forest, but it's in a basin, and you see like there is a lot of mineral activities. You have some economical areas, and you have some gravel extractions areas, which makes it really mineral, and in fact the heat is contained into this area, so it's one of the warmest parts of the city, while it has this presence of the water. So for every river, every stream, at the moment you have water, you would extend the system of park. You would systematically extend the width of vegetation along the waterways. Then this is a section you would see the economical areas, the gravel carriers, the valley structure. And we can transform the economical areas. You can work with the edges, you can play with the parking, same thing. You have to look always to where the water goes and how to make it way more porous. We can allow the stream of water to be free, to create a much more natural park, and create a large park which has the scale of the lakefront. So the city would be cornered by 2 large parks, and to create a system of parks along the waterways to create a ring all around the valley. And then you have the agricultural crown all around. So in Europe now there is a new law, we'll see how it will go, that protects the empty spaces. Close to the city, like most of the time, the open fields, they were used to spread. You can build on it, it's fine. But they are fundamental, and they are fundamental for the climate of the city. Here it's a bit different, like you have almost infinite space, so I don't know, you deal with infinity, it's tricky. But now we start to understand that these agricultural pieces of land, which are a bit like a puzzle fractured, they're fundamental. And there are two situations. In blue, you would have the agricultural land in the valley, flat, so more fertile, and then in green, the agricultural on the hills. In the valley, they're fundamental because they allow this breeze to circulate close to the city center. They're also fundamental because they're in the valley, so they're more fertile, and we are looking to increase the production of low circulation products. We are trying to, working on resiliency. It's also preserving the fertility on the ground. So all of these spaces in the valley, which were considered as the leftovers, has to be structured into one park, an agro park, to be sure that they are preserved and they are able to organize the urban sprawl all around them. And then in the hills, it's a bit different. It's all about water management. Like you have less water coming down from the Alps. How do you manipulate these empty surfaces? How do you work on the hedge to be able to canalize the winds towards the city center, to retain the water coming down, and to imagine a new kind of production in the future, because the temperature rising. So this specific landscape by the Alps is really about grasslands. If you have less water, the grasslands disappear. We are even speaking about the wine coming up, like Annecy will produce some wine like the south of France. So how do you anticipate that, not working directly in the production, but working on the limits of the agricultural spaces. And it would create this landscape of strong edges, which is able also to organize the informal sprawl around the city. So when you add all of these strategies, which are simple reinforcement of what's existing, yeah? You would have this new large waterfront, the new large park, new large public space on the lake, the large axis within the valley, prolongating the park system and allowing the breeze to get within the center, the main park in the valley, and then this little house following the waterways, creating this crown of parks all around the city, and all around the amplification, the reinforcement of the agricultural crown, which produce this image, which could be an amateur structure, climatic structure, organizing the resiliency of Annecy for 2050. At a much lower scale, we work in Grenoble. So a bit the same condition in the valley around the Alps. It is, so you would see the Alps on the right, another mountain formation on the west, and this plain totally covered with urbanization. So Grenoble also is facing major heat island and trying to face these issues. We are working in the south of the city, which is characterized by this also modernist structure made of large blocks, and we are working in between a commercial center and the Congress Center. Large piece of parking, supermineral space, like the entrance of the city. It is this vast space, and the brief by the city was, we don't know what to do there. We don't have so much money, but we know that we want to try something. And it was a temporary, they were asking for temporary projects to activate this space. Because right now you have the Alpes Congrès, so the Congress Center here, by Jean Prouvé, by the way, this one. Then the commercial center, and you would see this mineral space when nothing happens. Everybody's inside on the freezing, in the air-conditioned mode. And then you have the ice skating place here. And even the moms, when they wait for their kids doing ice skating, they are in their car on the parking and then not in the public space. And so we worked with the architect Pix, great architects, Parisian architect in this project. And we decided to try to change temperature immediately. We don't have so much money. You want to try something. We want to turn this space into a proper garden. Some historical image to show you that the plains was humid before, and this vast network of small streams which have disappeared fully in the urbanization. But always we do this exercise of revelation, so we looked a bit at the existing only landscape structure of Grenoble. You would have this historical center with the axis and main squares. You would have this long linear parks and large avenues following old rail tracks and historical avenues. You would have some pieces of the city, like the campus and the ex-Olympic village, with massive presence of vegetation, beautiful areas where you have a lot of trees. And in these plains, you would find parks and the old path of the river. We are located here, so there is also this idea that Grenoble has this idea of turning itself into a park city, and we wanted this project to be a first gesture to indicate that all of the southern part of Grenoble would be this network of park where you could find everywhere green spaces, shade, humidity. So going back to the site, we looked in a bit of a dumb way, where is it shaded, where it's not shaded, so it's just taking the shade of the tree on the 21st of June on AutoCAD, and revealing a bit where we had to intervene to ensure that we can change the climate as much as possible. And then if you want a garden, you need few elements. You need shade, you need to sit, you need vegetation. And we implemented these elements in a distant ways. you would find row of trees, creating a new hierarchy into the space. You would find benches using the existing unused shade of the trees. And the architect had this brilliant idea of creating a large vellum, like a structure, covering like 1,000 square meters of asphalt, of concrete, using the ice skating as a way to install the structure. That's a taxonometry of the project, where you have this huge vellum, the trees, and the different benches all around. And that's a build project. So this was really with bit of money, and it was conceived as a 3 months project, and the city extended it like 6 months, 1 year, to maintain it on site. It was temporary, so the idea with the trees was to use this space as a tree nursery, like to take young trees, to adapt them to the warm climate environment, and after that, after the temporary use on the square, to be able to redistribute them in other parts of the city. So it was also a way to test new species, because now in every city we are considering, okay, what trees do we use? All the trees we were used to implement, they're not working anymore. And we are looking for southern species to be able to create urban landscape. That's an image of the row of trees. So everything is designed by the constraint. Like the row of trees is because of the water we could find underground, like the way we installed the irrigation system. Everything is quite standardized to play with the lack of money we had to install this temporary garden. But you would see all this row of trees, they cut suddenly the square from the road, and they are able to redistribute the space around the existing trees. And then what was really nice to observe, it's like you have this bench, same thing, we don't have money, so the architect, another brilliant idea was to go to a quarry and to take the last stone. When you cut a stone, you have slides. And then you have the last slide, which is a bit rough on the edge, and they cannot commercialize it. So we just took the last slides, we picked them on site, and the architect put them on some rubber spots, and that's it, you have a bench for almost nothing. And the life came back on site, meaning like the teenagers, they were grabbing the McDonald's and they were coming on site. The mother, they would wait on the bench. Like, suddenly it became a much more vivid public space. And the vellum, so it's this same thing. What do you do without money? You go for industrial fabrics. So this is what's used for greenhouses, you know, this super cheap industrial textile they use to shape the glass house greenhouses made in rows and cables. And what was unexpected, that it's constantly moving, like it's a medusa. The little breeze is changing the landscape fully. And I really believe, like, because it's always in this exercise of revelation, because we see the wind, suddenly you feel it fresher. Like, when you sit down there, you see the medusa, you see this game of light and shade on the ground constantly moving. You feel much more the breeze coming in the square. And also we worked with the laboratory to install a series of captors. Like, it's a bioclimatic garden. We wanted to objectify the capacity of the garden to refresh the environment. So we installed a series of captors measuring the tensiometer for the humidity in the ground, weather station to be able to calculate the UTCI, so how you feel, like the climate perception, temperature perception, and the Cameleo, which was calculating the capacity of the garden to collect pollutants. And then it helped us to have, in real time, like on the phone, information about the garden. When you have young trees, what's tricky is that you have to water them almost every day, like especially in a warm urban environment. So this was really helpful because it was like super hard climate, and we had to we were able to maintain them quite precisely. It also helped us to calculate the UTCI on the square. So it's a mix of between the air temperature, the solar radiation and humidity, to give you an indication of the level of perception. And indeed it worked. Like under the shade, we're able to reduce by 4 degrees the UTCI, which is quite big. And we also understood much more precisely that young vegetation, you know, we always say like, okay, it's warm, just put vegetation. Young vegetation doesn't have any effect on the temperature, at least for the first 5-10 years. So you would say, okay, it's a bit dumb to say it's more fresh and there's shade. But for the city, it was really important because it was objectifying for them where the public money went. It was helping them to understand what to do now, what to plan after. Can we reproduce this on some mineral ground where you cannot plant, on roofs, on the public parkings? And indeed now they are working with the architects on a much bigger canopy on a place where it's impossible to plant trees. That's the number of days where you feel this chemical stress, and under the vellum you would see that there is no high chemical stress. So it worked. And last project I want to show you, like we go down in scale. Lausanne, so we're by Annecy, we're by the lake, and we reply to the competition for Lausanne Jardin. So it's a festival of gardens every year, where they create temporary installation in the city. And the theme was water in the cities. So same configuration, but it's by the lake, like Le Mans Lake, which is way bigger than Annecy Lake, and it's not facing it's directly facing the waters. Same thing, we did this exercise of revelation. We're really interested with the thermodynamics of the lake, like it's a vast lake. It has huge impact, of course, of the temperature within the city. And looking at all these winds, like you have the storm winds, but you have also all the thermodynamics we saw before. They all have names. The Morabia, the Bornon, the Séchard, la Bise. All of these names are a bit lost. They are known from fishermen, from sailors, but they are a bit lost in the collective conscious. And working on Lausanne, so which is facing the same issue and sea and Genève, like how do we make the city cooler? We wanted to revive those winds, or to reveal these winds. So in the competition, you can pick in which side you want to go, and they suggested some sides along the lake, and we picked a place at the end of the pontoon, which is a fantastic place, but by the harbor, like you would have an amazing view on the lake, but it's not so used because you have all of these mineral parts to get to the edge. At the edge, there is nothing. So we wanted to activate this point of the pontoon while playing with the winds, while revealing the density of winds in between the lake and the city. So you can see the pontoon. Even if it's right by the water, in summer, full sun, full exposure, you don't want to be there so much. We won the competition with this project, and we had many components trying to reveal the thermodynamics of the lake. We had the mist, which was supposed to play when the specific winds was coming. We had the balloon to create an event by night. We had these poplar trees, it's these trees where the wind comes in, like it does some noise with the foliage. We had some chairs trying to be orientated in some specific directions. And we did the first meeting with the curators, and they say, okay, you got selected by the panel of architects, but we don't get your project at all. And it's too complicated. We don't know how to maintain the trees. The mist, you cannot use the water of the lake because you cannot create mist if it's not drinkable water for some kind of hygiene regulation. It's too complicated. The balloon you cannot because you are right into the airport corridor. So the moment it goes out, it's creating a mess. So we had to reshape the project. They gave us 2-3 weeks to reshape the project, and we wanted to. And it was indeed really great because we had to go back to the essentials. Okay, what do we want to do? We want to play with the water of the lake. We want to play with the wind. What do? We do a fountain, pumping the water of the lake, creating this curtain of water. And so we let the wind getting in this curtain of water, and the curtain of water will reveal the wind. So a much more simple object, but I really feel like much more clear and much more efficient in this capacity of revealing and creating a cool environment, a cooler environment, and the destination point at the end of the pontoon. That's the built object. So it's really a fountain, like you would see the pump here, pumping directly the water from the lake, putting it into the ring, creating this curtain of water, and the curtains moves according to which wind is coming. And you would see now, like some people showering, because you can swim in the lake directly. So it becomes, in summer, it really becomes a destination point where you go with the kids. You can swim, go back, take your shower, and stay there much longer. By night, some pictures, you can see something, revealing the density of the curtain. And some details, like it's really, we try to make it as simple as possible. So you really have the pump filling the tube, and it's really an empty tube with some holes, and that's it. And a new sign, a new place on the waterfront. Yep. Maybe I just want to show you 2 videos. iPhone videos, but because the nice part of this garden is like the noise. Pas. Non. And the last one. Okay. No, it's fine.
Sure.
There's one more. Okay. Yeah, and to conclude, I wanted to share with you this sentence, which was important for me on this act of revealing, on this act of what's important, on what do you focus. And it's a sentence by Rainer Maria Rilke, not on the melody of things, who is writing about writing. He was writing a piece of theater. And how do you write? How do you write? How do you select what's important? I will just read it. To this end, we must have distinguished the 2 events of the melody of life in their primitive form. We must have deconstructed the roaring tumult of the sea and extracted from it the rhythm of the sound of the waves. and have, from the model of everyday conversation, unravel the living line that carries the other. You have to place pure colors side by side to learn to appreciate their contrast and affinities. You have to forget the many for the love of the important. And I would say that the important, if we want to build these new images for the future, is really what was considered as fragile, like a sea breeze, a bit of shade, the water drops, and it goes also for societies, minorities. Like more we take care of the fragile, more we're able to build the next world. Thank you.
Thank you for the wonderful lecture. It's amazing to listen to you. Thank you for the presentation. Well, now we have some time for questions or comments from the audience. The thing I had in mind thinking about the differences between working in the north and here in the south. And from the conversations we had since we met yesterday, we were always speaking about things like in the broader term, you know, just like not seeing a piece of land, but seeing the sea, the mountain, and the environment. And I was wondering, who do you think is the client or the power that can make these changes? You know, who? Because when walking. While seeing the presentation, I was wondering, you know, how can we tackle such a global problem, you know, that goes over cities, that goes just over, you know, a town, and it's even, it goes beyond countries, it even goes beyond continents. And yeah, just thinking about trying to do this here, I was saying, who would commission, how to make it, and so on. And yeah, perhaps just to hear some thoughts on how you relate this to politics and to the politics of the everyday from your experience.
Well, the question is a bit how we bring everybody on board.
Yeah. It's what we've been talking these days. Yeah.
It's tricky because of two things. Like, first, liberalism won't stop soon. But it's affecting everybody. It's affecting economies, it's affecting private sector, public sector. I do feel it's hard to get everybody on board because we speak only about the future as a protection, like the bad versus the good, the good green versus the bad gray, the good landscape versus the bad architecture, the bad economy versus more, I don't know, the systems. It's why I focus so much about representation. I do believe like we lack of images of this world after, and our job, when I say let's make this science sensitive, our job could really be to produce these images. We have the capacity of synthesis, we have the capacity to represent. How do you build images where everybody could go on board? And in this exercise of mapping, of revealing what's there already, taking in account public and private parts, suddenly you have these maps where everybody could play its part. Either you are in economical areas, or you are working in agriculture, or you are in public space. Everybody, every actor could be part of the solution. And it's beneficial for everybody. And I think it's really a discourse about, shifting from a discourse about I can protect what I can and you do your terrible job to, guys, it's better for everybody. And if we represent it, we are able suddenly to say, to bring everybody around the table. Like the moment you start, and so I also like to to focus on dynamics and movements, because through dynamics, what we saw in the video, we cross private lands, we forget a bit about the property, we forget a bit who's doing that, but we understand the solidarity, like everybody needs each other, and the way you feel in Rome depends on what they do 50 kilometers away. So it's more about creating alliances, solidarities, and beneficial support to build resiliency than keeping on saying what's wrong and what's good.
Thank you. Here. I don't know if there's any questions or comments from the audience. ¿Nos podemos ayudar en la traducción?
Thank you so much for your presentation. It was really good. I have a question. It is also related to the global warming, but it's related about how the green spaces affect people.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you know the concept of neuroarchitecture and how you think your project is affecting all the people that live around your projects.
I didn't get fully the question.
Sorry, what?
I didn't get fully the question. Like, do I know if how the project affect the people?
Yeah, about neuroarchitecture, how all the landscapes affects the lives of the people that live around all these green spaces. It's not all about global warming, it's about the stress of the people that is in the places and how it goes down with all these green spaces.
Yeah, what I find, like now the conversation has changed also in Europe about that, and we try to, and we start to understand that everything is deeply connected. Like the way more you have strong ecosystems, more the people are healthy, and we're thinking a lot about health in public spaces, for instance, and we really start to objectify the importance of green spaces within city for the health of habitants, for the stress, you have a lot of public policies trying to implement landscape strategies directly following this idea of health, bien-être, how do you say bien-être, well-being, sports, and it's as important as climate comfort in the design.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Mathieu, thank you for your lecture. I really enjoyed. And I really enjoyed your obsession about climate. Because for us, actually, we're not getting into the climate agenda. So it's interesting for us, the way Agustin said recently, but it's interesting the contrast between what you guys are thinking and exploring there. But I would like to ask you if you can explain us more what your working process is, how you mix science and the design process, because you showed two different methods and scales of projects, the big ones and the last one. So I would like to ask you how you join them.
And we tried, still a work in progress, to establish a clear methodology, which is never a clear methodology because it's project time. So, but we do start even before reading the brief, like knowing what they want to understand the site on two different aspects, like the reading of the territory, like what we did in Annecy with all the existing landscape in Grenoble, and the first reading of what's there, and another reading in terms of dynamics, what's moving, what's invisible, and how do we reveal it. And those goes hand by hand. For instance, Annecy, it's good. Annecy, I didn't have the scientist with me, so I got info from the, how do you say in English, the guys who do skydiving about the lake, and they are specialists of winds everywhere, so they know exactly how the wind goes in each slopes. And I had all description of 19th century novels saying this breeze at this time. I had like studies of the 80s showing already the climate, the heat island within the basin. And you combine all of this, maybe it's not even true what I'm saying, but it's just an understanding of what's invisible with our tools. And once we have these two readings, once we have revealed something, we just try to push it. Okay, how do we increase what's there? And that's it. And then we see, once we have this figure of this first strategy, how do we implement uses? How do we bring sports, mobilia, lights, furniture, different activities? But it really comes in the last step. I don't know if I replied. Yeah.
Thank you, too. Really nice conference and really interesting. I want to ask you about the kind of project, the water piece. If you can tell us something about the technology and the materials, and if the project is a concourse or another client. Can you
the Lausanne project?
The last project, yes.
So it was a competition for Festival Lausanne Jardin. They created 50 installations all along the banks, speaking about Lausanne and its waters. We got selected. Then you go through a design process, and for the construction part, we got lucky enough to have, I don't know if you saw the opening of the ceremony in the Olympic Games. At one point you have the horse running on the scene, and we had the same company which built the ring. It's super simple, but simple is always, of course, the hardest way. I had the pleasure to work with two architects who were into detailing the piece. It's a fountain, meaning like you have a pump, you have a tube in the lake, and then it's just filling the tubes. They're all empty with some holes. It's all steel, stainless steel, I think, and that's it. And so they prefabricated everything, and then in 24 hours on site it was all set up, and it's just plugged to the harbor right by, which were kind enough for us to let us use one of the plug for the boats there.
Is the fountain still on site?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's supposed to stay until September, November, but the city is interested by the project, so they might stay there, or it might be unveiled and moved into a garden or something, so the kids could play. It's there, it will stay there somewhere, and it belongs to the city now. So I hope they will make something with it.
We have a neural blood here on both sides.
It's easily reproducible.
¿Alguna pregunta más? ¿Un comentario? ¿Una audiencia? ¿No? ¿Sí? Allá.
Thank you for the lecture. I would think you mentioned the importance of the air circulation for the equality of spaces. So we're talking about environment, importance of high quality of air. And for this, the air circulation is essential. The problem is sometimes some bodies or some cities that are surrounded by mountains, especially in Nobel, for example, sometimes there's not enough air to breathe. So the air is very critical. And for example, you don't have at all, for example, when there's pollution, the pollution stays there. And sometimes not even the body of water, like lakes or seas are enough. For example, Genova, it's in the coast, but it's quite polluted as well, and the air quality is bad. No need to talk about Milan. But what can we do then in those situations? How landscape can provide a better environment? Great question.
But It's not a toolbox. It's never a toolbox. And most of the time, when we are asked to work somewhere, whatever is the scale, it's like, okay, repair. We are damaging it. Do your reparation work. Protect what you can. It's going to be dry, put some water. It's going to be sunny, put some trees. And do your job. It's much more systemic than that. It's much more integrated. Milan, it's a bit the same situation than Grenoble and see like lack of water, plain. Torino is the same. Heavy industrial history. The Po is doing that. The Po is in Torino. It's in Milan also, the Po. It's drying crazy. There are studies and there are works. I'm thinking about the beautiful work by Vogt, I think, who studied how the entire hydrographic system from the Alps is going all the way down. And on the northern side, on the southern side, you would have forests you could revitalize and work with agricultural crown. And also this hydrographic history of Milano, it's an old canalized areas from irrigation from the Po. And that would be one of the tools. Like, how do you rethink the entire agricultural system and the hydrographic system to manipulate a bit the thermodynamics in the city? Like, when there is irrigation, you have humidity. How do you turn that into public spaces, systems of park? How do you preserve? How do you create new corridors towards the city? But it's without the act of revealing and looking precisely at things. There is never a toolbox to implement on a design. Whatever is the scale, like even if the site is small, we have to zoom out crazy to understand what's going on there.
Thank you very much.
If there's no other questions, perhaps that's a good ending. No toolbox.
No toolbox. No? Please, no toolbox.
No toolbox. Just hire me, call me, and we can solve. Thank you everyone for coming. Thank you so much.
Thank you.